addition to writing a new introduction, I decided to write an extensive epilogue to indicate a set of integrated, basic theological convictions that underpin the book, to explain myself a bit about the stress on the will to embrace, for instance, to defend myself from criticism that touches the foundation of the argument, for instance, on the nature and place of the Trinity, which is also why I have reprinted in the appendix a subsequent text on that very topic, and to note what I wish I had not omitted, for instance, restitution as a key element of reconciliation. But I have made one major intervention in the original text. I have eliminated the chapter on gender. Since the publication of the book, the field of gender studies has exploded. Over the years, I was not able to observe developments in the field closely enough to revise and update the text in light of both the amount and the weight of intellectual work accomplished. Responsible rewriting would have taken more time than I was able to give the project. Preface to the first edition. After I finished my lecture, Professor Jürgen Moltmann stood up and asked one of his typical questions, both concrete and penetrating. But can you embrace a chetnik? It was the winter of 1993. For months now, the notorious Serbian fighters called chetnik had been sowing desolation in my native country, herding people into concentration camps, raping women, burning down churches, and destroying cities. I had just argued that we ought to embrace our enemies as God has embraced us in Christ. Can I embrace a chetnik? For me, at the time, the ultimate other, so to speak, the evil other. What would justify the embrace? Where would I draw the strength for it? What would it do to my identity as a human being and as a Croat? It took me a while to answer, though I immediately knew what I wanted to say. No, I cannot, but as a follower of Christ, I think I should be able to. In a sense, this book is the product of the struggle between the truth of my argument and the force of Moltmann's objection. It was a difficult book to write. My thought was pulled in two different directions by the blood of the innocent crying out to God and by the blood of God's Lamb offered for the guilty. How does one remain loyal both to the demand of the oppressed for justice and to the gift of forgiveness that the crucified offer to the perpetrators? I felt caught between two betrayals. The betrayal of the suffering, exploited, and excluded, and the betrayal at the very core of my faith. In a sense, even more disturbingly, I felt that my very faith was at odds with itself, divided between the God who delivers the needy and the God who abandons the crucified, between the demand to bring about justice for the victims and the call to embrace the perpetrator. I knew, of course, of easy ways to resolve this powerful tension, but I also knew that they were easy precisely because they were false. Goaded by the suffering of those caught in the vicious cycles of conflict, not only in my native Croatia but around the globe, I went on a journey whose report I present in this book. Almost inescapably, the report is intensely personal, even in its most abstract and exacting sections. I do not mean that I indulge here in a public display of mushy sentiments. The book is personal in the sense that I struggle intellectually with issues that cut close to the heart of my identity. No free-floating and unaffected mind is trying here to resolve an intriguing intellectual puzzle. I chose not even to try the impossible. I, a citizen of a world at war and a follower of Jesus Christ, could not hang up my commitments, desires, rebellions, resignations, and uncertainties like a coat on a coat rack before entering my study, to be taken up and put on when the work of the day was over. My people were being brutalized, and I needed to think through the response appropriate for me, a follower of the crucified Messiah.